Welcome back once again to the Wednesday. Blah, 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 blah. Let's try that again. Welcome back, everybody, to the Wednesday night webinar. Been talking all day. And this is sponsored by NoCD. NoCD, free downloadable app that you can get on Google Play or iOS. TreatMyOCD.com is our website. It popped right up there in that little yellow box with the little blue hyperlink. Talk to one of our care team members. We are in over 25 states right now in the United States. And we are continuously growing our insurance network as well, too. Allison, how's it going? It's going, it's going pretty well. It's been a long day, Allison. A good day, productive day, actually. Amazingly productive day. But Wednesdays are the long days because I start at about 8:30 and take this webinar till 8 o'clock. So today's my 11 and a half hour day during the week. So yeah. Woo-hoo. But here we are once again to work with all of you and to talk about questions, fears, things of that nature. And our first one just came in. I have a fear of being stranded outside home. I need to take everything I need and loved ones every time I go out. Help. Well, before I answer that, Carolyn, I've never had a cup of coffee, actually. So just so you know. So how do we deal with that fear of being stuck outside of the home? Well, here's what you do. First of all, let's just ask a couple of questions, just for fun. How would one get stranded outside of the home? Just how would it happen? You might say, well, the doors would be locked. Okay. Well, we can call a locksmith. Oh, I might not have my phone. Well, I can go to a neighbor. What if they're not home? Break through a window. Right? I mean, there's obvious ways of doing it. So there's got to be some fear that's really going on besides not being able to get in the house, I'm going to assume, because obviously there are ways that one can get in the home. So what does it mean to be stranded outside of the home? Are you afraid of being separated from the things that you love, right? And what if you never have access to those things again? I think that that's probably more the deeper fear of what you're describing. So here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to leave someone at home and the rest of you go around the block, take a walk around the block. And then leave two people at home and take a walk around the block with everything and everyone else. And every time you go around the block, I want you to have one less thing or person with you until you are able to walk around the block with nothing but yourself, not even a key, not even a cell phone. And you just go by yourself and you walk around the block and you come back home and you allow yourself to see that you can still get back into your house and still then see that all of your stuff is there, because your fear might even be, what if all my stuff's stolen while I'm gone? And I wouldn't want that to happen. So I have to have everything with me so that I have accountability all the time of everything and everyone, or else what if I come back and something's missing, right? It could be somewhere around those things too. So I'm thinking it's got to be more than just being stranded outside your home. I think there's got to be some deeper connection to people and things and your fear of somehow losing those things. So if you don't have a therapist, and as always, everyone, everything tonight is just kind of some advice we're throwing out there. Please, if you have very specific questions about therapy or how to apply this to yourself, seek out the help of a therapist. Maybe an OCD teletherapist, by the way, which we have in 25 states, as I said. All right. So I hope that that's helpful. All righty. I feel that whenever I give into my checking OCD and just check this little thing and nothing else, bad. Don't do that. Not a great idea. I end up checking a lot more things. See, I knew that was coming. I didn't even read ahead, and I knew that that was coming, and become anxious. However, by resisting checking, I fear I'm going to eventually miss something important with terrible repercussions. How do you come to terms with this risk? Well, I'm wondering what the terrible repercussions would be for missing something. I mean, I don't know what's going on upstairs in my house right now, right? And I could think the worst case scenario, that someone has broken in, stolen everything, set the upstairs on fire, but disabled the smoke alarms so I won't be able to hear them. And soon the house will come crashing down upon me in burning embers, and I will die a painful, awful, horrible death, being crushed and burned alive. Should I go check? I mean, it could happen, right? It is a possibility. I'm not going to deny that it is possible. So I'm just wondering if I should leave the webinar right now and just go check and make sure that that hasn't happened. And then I'll come back down and I'll continue. But then 5 minutes later, it might pop in my head again. So then I'll leave the webinar again and I'll go check just to make sure that it hasn't happened. And every time I do, I'll feel great. I'll feel that wonderful relief when I do that. But then notice that I'm going to need to do it again and again. And then the more that I trick myself into, well, just this last time, or just this little tiny thing, the more that I kind of fall for that, the more I realize, it got me again. It got me again. That poopy head of an OCD, it got me again. So, guess what? You might miss something. Could happen. But let's weigh the pros and the cons here for a moment. Is missing something, even with a terrible repercussion, easier to overcome than living your life spending hours and hours checking every day? Because what you're not taking into account is all the things you're missing because of your checking. Maybe if you have children, being involved in their lives, or a spouse being involved in their life, or skipping work or school or family functions or other things too, all because you're checking. So maybe those are small repercussions, not terrible repercussions. But how many small repercussions equals one terrible repercussion? 10? 20? I bet you have thousands of small repercussions that you don't give a crap about because you're only worried about one terrible repercussion. But it's those small repercussions that add up. And it's those small repercussions that lead us to feel more down, more sad, more depressed, and lead us to check more. Because what do we do to feel good? Well, we check. And so we keep doing more checking because we know that's the thing that makes us feel good. Got to think about it like that. All right, let's see something here. Okay. I often have intrusive thoughts along the lines of, why is it wrong to hurt, abuse someone? These thoughts scare me so much. Okay, but at the same time, I feel I've gone down this rabbit hole. I don't even have an answer for myself anymore. Even when I come up with an answer, I don't even believe myself. Do I treat this like OCD, or should I be concerned that I can't find an answer to my questioning? This makes me so scared. Well, if that doesn't sound like an OCD question, I don't know what does. So let's look at the rabbit hole, shall we say here, in this kind of thing. So what if I were to hurt someone, harm someone, abuse someone, molest someone? Okay. And then what if one day they don't scare me as much as they have in the past? Does that mean today that I actually like those thoughts? Does that mean today that I might want those thoughts, or now those thoughts might come real today because I'm not as scared or worried or freaked out by them as I was yesterday? Oh my gosh. I better start doing some compulsions right away now to neutralize those thoughts so that I don't give in and actually go and do those things. Because it's all that fear that keeps my guard up and obviously has stopped me from ever doing those things before. But what happens if I lose the fear? Crap. I got to have more fear. I better think of more things to be afraid of then, to induce more fear in myself, so that then I get that fear back, because it's, of course, that fear that prevents me from doing something. So I'll just say this. By the end of this webinar, I might or might not take a break from it, walk outside, and firebomb one of my neighbors' homes. Maybe. I'm going to think about it. We'll see if it happens. Who knows? I'm wondering now how scared I should be. Or I'm also wondering what a bad person I am for having even thought that. Or I'm wondering, wait, if I don't have enough fear of that, does that mean I'm actually going to go and do it? So should I call one of my neighbors to say, hey, just keep an eye out for me in case I come outside with a Molotov cocktail towards your house? Just why don't you just stand outside with a hose and spray me down if you happen to see me in the next hour, just to make sure that I don't firebomb your house. Would that be prudent? Would that be a great idea? Or might that be over the top and now make my neighbors think, oh my gosh, who the hell lives across the street from us? And let's never let him in our house forever, because he just called us and told us that he thinks he could potentially firebomb us. So maybe we should even call the police on him and say, yeah, I just got this call from my neighbor who said, could you stand out on your porch with a hose tonight in the off chance that I might come out of my house with a Molotov cocktail and throw it at your house? I could just see the 911 operator. We'll send a car right over, ma'am. We'll be right there. So, can I ever be concerned enough? Not in the OCD world. And if I'm not concerned enough, well, does that mean that I want to actually do it, or that it means that I'm a really bad person? So let's be careful about that, right? All right. I've always had harm OCD, and I always have completed my compulsions, such as touching things a certain number of times to alleviate the uncomfortableness of sitting with that thought. But just recently, my compulsions have been getting worse during quarantine, and telling the truth was one of my next compulsions, and I had to tell the truth to everyone to relieve myself. But now I recently had a thought just the other day that said, what if I hurt my girlfriend as a compulsion? And there was no way out of it unless you do it. And if you don't, you'll live with this bad feeling for the rest of your life and feel like this thought has a trap on me because I can't get out of it and there's no solution for me. And I feel like it isn't even OCD anymore, and it turned into something else, and I'm going crazy. This thought has really changed my life, giving me a great amount of distress and anxiety these last few weeks. And I just got an OCD specialist, but I need help with this, please. Well, I think the last answer I gave just applied to that as well, too. Now you'll notice something here. What does OCD love to create? The unanswerable question. Because first of all, we could spend an hour probably dissecting this entire question right here, right? I mean, OCD does this, which then leads to that, which causes this. But then if I don't do this, then that. But if I do this, then it's that. So then I have to think about, what if I didn't do that? But if I did do that and I don't do that, but what do they, and then what will they think about the fact that I don't do that, but I did do that? But then maybe they will not want me to do that if I did do this. And so that could cause that. But what if that caused that? And then I'd have to call that, and I'd have to bring that over into this whole thing. And then there's that other piece of it as well. Oh, shoot. And I didn't even think about that either. We can't think ourselves out of this, right? But here's the lie. OCD says you can. OCD says there's a logical answer to all of this. You just got to find it. So why don't you start searching? Have you ever, with your OCD, heard an explanation that satisfied your OCD? If you did, I don't need a job anymore. No one of my patients has ever said, Dr. McGrath, that answer you just gave me, that solved it. Thank you. We're good. Everything's great. Let's move on. That's never happened. That's never going to happen. It's not about that. And yet, in this question right here, that's what you want. You want me to give you an answer that will solve this riddle. And even if I did, you wouldn't believe the answer I gave you, because you would say, yeah, but what if? Yeah, but what if? Yeah, but what if? And for all of you, you all have one more yeah, but what if than I have an answer. Right? That's just the way that it goes. Sal just said, I've been satisfied with an answer, but not my OCD. Thank you, Sal. You get my point. I appreciate that. You can't satisfy OCD because OCD is insatiable. OCD is always hungry. There's never enough that you can fill into OCD. So I want all of you to think about your questions tonight. And I want all of you to think about how much reassurance are you seeking in asking these questions? And many of you will hope that I'll say, oh, no, you're fine. You don't need to worry about that. That's okay. Which, of course, I won't do, because a few things. Number one, I know that even if I said that, your OCD would be like, oh, good. And then 5 minutes later, be like, yeah, but what if? So it's not about me giving you an answer that satisfies you. It's about you learning how to live with doubt. It's about being okay with not knowing. Anna just said, reassurance seeking is my vice. Apologies. And thank you for not playing into the OCD. Well, you're welcome, Anna. You've been doing this for 20 years. You kind of learn the tricks that OCD does, because OCD is a tricky little beast, let me tell you. So, by the way, everyone, tonight's webinar brought to you by NoCD. NoCD is a downloadable free app through iOS and Google Play. Check us out. All right. Download us. Check out our community of people where you can get support. You can ask questions. They can support you. They won't reassure you. And if you're looking for therapy, we're there. We got teletherapy in 25 states right now. We're shooting for the whole country soon. And we continue to get more and more insurance companies as well, too. All right. Let's see. Now, FYI, looks like some people are copying and pasting. If I see that, I will not answer your question. So just so you know, that's the case. All right. So any more from a certain one of you that has done that multiple times, you will not get your question answered. Okay. How can a spouse or a partner best support someone who is fighting OCD? Should they try to stop compulsions? No, I don't tell people to try to stop compulsions. What I do try to do is just to say not support them. And what I mean is not support the compulsions. We want to support the people with OCD, but we don't want to support the compulsions. So for example, if Chad, you have OCD, and I don't know if that's the case or not, but If you do, and you have a spouse, and you ask that spouse constantly, do you think this is okay? I want your spouse to say, I don't know. And that's the answer they give you, and nothing else than that when it's an OCD kind of question like this. Sometimes in families, I've also had families get a notebook, and I want them to write down the question, and then I want them to write down the answer. And what I want them to then say is, if the question ever comes up again, they just point at the notebook and say, that's in the notebook. And therefore, that question is never actually discussed ever again after the first time. Because OCD would like to have multiple discussions. And there's a few things with reassurance. Number one, reassurance is kind of like a drug, right? The more we get, the more we want. We develop a tolerance to it over time. So we need more reassurance to feel as good as we did before when we got reassurance. And the other piece about reassurance is this: if today I give you reassurance and tomorrow I give you reassurance, but tomorrow's answer is slightly different than today's, you're going to say, wait a minute. That's not how you said it yesterday. Hold on. Does that now mean that you've changed your mind? And if you did, well, what? How can you do that? So which was the right answer, yesterday's or today's? And now we have to have an hour-long discussion about why you changed your mind. And it's just another way to go that gets in the way. So it's not worth it. It's not worth going down that. Trang said, will this be recorded? Yes, Trang, we do record these and we put them on our YouTube channel. The NoCD YouTube channel has all of our webinars, so check them out. All right. I recently tried accepting thoughts and said that I was bisexual. It made me happy without the fear that I was able to think about a heterosexual relationship, but I had a lot of doubts, but I still wasn't worried. I need your opinion. You could accept the thought that you're a kangaroo. I mean, whatever it might be. I mean, we could all accept the thought that we're whatever we are. It doesn't make us anything, right? So the goal of therapy is to be able to be okay with whatever thought pops into our head and not look at it as good or bad or right or wrong or awful or horrible or anything like that. A thought is just a thought, and that's all that a thought is. And so there's so many people that, always though, and we see this on the chat all the time here, who put such significant value on their thoughts or their images or urges and wonder, what does that mean about me as a person that I've thought this? I've carried a card around in my wallet for 15 years that says, I hope my parents die tonight. I mean, does that say something horrible about me? Or does it just say, I wrote it one time as an exercise with a patient who had intrusive thoughts about people dying. So I said, well, I'll do an ERP with you. And I never took the card out of my wallet and it's still in there. Am I a bad person for that? When my parents die, will it be because of the card? If it is, I have superpowers. Cool. I can cause things to happen in the world just by writing them down. Sure, it took, over 15 years to make it happen, but look, I finally made it happen. Even if I didn't write that on the card, my parents are going to die. It's going to happen. I hope it's not for a long time. I happen to like them, but it's going to happen. So how responsible, by thinking it and now saying it out loud to the 77 of you who are listening to this live right now, how responsible am I for something happening to them? I don't think at all. But you might have a type of OCD that says, oh my gosh, now I have to do a compulsion, because what if it does happen? And then what if it happens because of what I said or what I did or what I thought or an image I had or an urge or something like that? Oh my gosh, I better do whatever I possibly can to stop that. No, then it means, again, you have superpowers. Hey, hi, Will. Hey, new person for the Q&A here from the UK. Welcome. You're 17. You have pure OCD, mainly POCD. Let's talk about pure OCD for a moment. I don't think there is such a thing, really. Pure OCD just means that you do mental rituals and not physical rituals. So I'm going to bet you still do rituals. So I wouldn't say that you have pure. Mainly POCD, so pedophilic themed, over a year now. And it's mainly just intrusive thoughts about bothering me, like I always think of the worst possible thing. I can't be happy, and then I get anxious. Yeah. So I would like to know what are kind of the neutralizing thoughts that you do. And instead of doing those, just be able to be okay with the fact that you have thoughts that you don't like that pop into your head. Right. I'm going to introduce another one into my head right now. I hope a flock of birds crashes into the side of my house. Let's see if any birds die by the end of this. Okay. So we've got potential police being called on me so far for thinking about firebombing my neighbor's home, flocks of birds, and potentially my house burning down, crashing on top of me, and burying and burning me alive. It's going to be a rough 33 more minutes, I'll tell you, to see if we get through all of this. All right. So. All right. How do I crack an exposure and response prevention when my exposure is going to the toilet, faced with the very real presence of bodily fluid residue, i.e., not just a thought, that fact that the fear is right there and very present? Well, I'm curious. What does bodily fluid residue do to you? I mean, if they're dangerous, all babies should be dead, right? Any baby wearing a diaper who poops or pees in their diaper, or for our UK folks, a nappy, overnight, should be dead by the morning if it's really that dangerous, because a bodily fluid or substance has touched them. And here's the other thing: our bodies are filled with bodily fluids. So how are they not dangerous when they're inside of us, but they are dangerous when they're outside of us? Interesting. I've actually never said that or thought that until right now. But so that's what I love about doing these sometimes, because sometimes just little gems come to you. So let's talk about that for a minute. How does urine and feces not kill me when it's inside of me, but the moment it leaves my body, it's like, ah! It is. How does it become the most dangerous substance in the entire world once it's outside of me? I don't understand that. I want all of you to think about that. Any of you who have contamination fears, I'd love for you to think about this right now and think about coming up with an explanation. Put it into the chat here on the side. How does something, once it leaves your body, become more dangerous than it was when it was inside of your body? Because really, if it's inside your body and it's dangerous, shouldn't it be harming you while it's inside of you? Right? How is it not? Let me know your thoughts on that. I'd be really, really fascinated to see what you think. I mean, if urine and feces were that dangerous, it should be eating us from the inside out. I've never met anyone that's happened to. Have any of you? Anybody? I don't think so. By the way, tonight's being brought to you by NoCD. NoCD downloadable app on the iOS and PlayStation. Google Play. PlayStation. Maybe it's time to go play some video games. We're in 25 states currently. Teletherapy. And we take insurance. And we're getting more and more insurance coverage all the time. So please reach out to us right up there in the little corner in the yellow box with the blue hyperlink, or go to treatmyocd.com and you can schedule a free 15-minute call with one of our care team members who will get you set up for a diagnostic assessment with one of our wonderful wonderful therapists. All right. Extreme COVID contamination fear. It's becoming debilitating. I think the virus is everywhere, including my own home. And if I can't even move sometimes, if I touch things in my own home, even if I have to go wash my hands, I live with my older mom and dad. So a lot of extreme health OCD I'm currently experiencing is motivated by fear of infecting them. I feel their lives are dependent upon me. Please help. COVID is destroying my life and I haven't even gotten it. Well, great example of what if there, right? There's a wonderful example of all the what if things that could happen. So some of you know, I've talked about it on here. I live with someone who is very immunocompromised with cancer and it's a terminal diagnosis. So there's nothing we can really do about it. Here's my COVID world. I go out and when I shop, I put a mask on. And when I come home, I wash my hands for 20 seconds. And that's it. We don't wipe down packages. We don't wipe down groceries. We don't do any of those things. She helps put the groceries away and she goes out and gets the mail and all of those things. She can still walk. It's rough. She has to use a walker to get there, but she tries to get outside a couple of times a day. So I'm curious, what is the difference? And you know what the difference is? I'll tell you right now. The difference is obsessive compulsive disorder. That's the difference. I don't have OCD, and you do. And therefore, when I go out and I do those things, I think, well, the CDC guidelines have given us things to follow, and so that's what I'm going to follow. And you listen to it as, but what if there's something more that I should do? But what if that's not enough? But what if I were to be responsible in some way, somehow, even if it's an amazingly slight possibility? What if I were to be responsible for something and I just am not willing to take that chance? Okay. Now, the amazingly extreme thing would be, Adam, put a plastic bubble around the home that the three of you live in. Hire somebody to deliver food to you. Build a wash station outside of your home so that they will have to shower and change clothes. And then put all of the food and packaging that comes through your house through a washer and a pasteurizer to kill any form of virus or germ. And only then can anything enter your home, where you could do another entire cleaning ritual around it. And then have, if we could find it, some robots that deliver the food to each of you in your own individual rooms so that none of you are ever around each other and therefore none of you can ever spread a germ to any of you. Now, that, when I say it out loud, and I don't mean that mockingly in any way, when I say that out loud, sounds absolutely ridiculous. And yet, there's a part of your OCD that's going, that's not a bad idea. I wonder if we could make that happen. OCD thinks in the abstract, not in the real. OCD makes you believe that you could do everything that it wants you to do, even though it creates impossible things to do. And then when you don't do the impossible things that it tells you to do, it beats you up for not doing them and tells you that you're not doing enough. OCD's a jerk and a liar. So in the world of OCD, you will always be the responsible person for all of the bad things that happen or that could happen. And you better do whatever you possibly can to make sure those things don't ever happen. Or you get treatment for your OCD and you allow yourself to learn, yep, I could get COVID. And there could be a chance that I could somehow spread it to other people as well too. But I'm going to follow the guidelines. And those are the things I'm going to follow because those have been suggested as the thing to be helpful. And that's what you do. What do we recommend to POCD sufferers to deal with uncertainty? For example, when I practice my script, I may be a pedophile, but I will take the uncertainty and move on. I do not experience anxiety relief. Continue to practice. I mean, I'll add that to the things that could go wrong tonight. Now, in the 24 minutes that are left, I might also kidnap one of the children as they walk down the street from one of the neighbors. So far tonight, I may burn down a neighbor's house with a Molotov cocktail, watch a flock of birds crash into my home, be crushed by the house falling in on top of me because someone has broken in and set a fire on the house, but disabled all the fire extinguishers. So eventually it's going to crash down on me and I'm going to be crushed and burned alive. And now I might also bring a child in and harm them in the midst of all of that happening as well. Or none of that's going to happen, which I'm going to bet is what's probably really going to go. But yeah, we'll see. So yes, it's hard to accept a thought if you have OCD. You know what's not hard though if you don't have OCD? Thoughts. You know why? Because people without OCD go, "Oh, that was weird," and then they move on. And people with OCD say, "Where did that come from? Why did I have that? What does that mean about me?" I mean, I think if I heard anyone else say that thought, I would think awful, horrible things about them. So that must therefore mean that there's also horrible things about me, right? Well, here's the thing. Maybe we learn after OCD treatment, we don't need to be so judgmental. I mean, frankly, imagine a world where everyone had OCD, everyone in the world. It'd be awful. In fact, I'd say, and I've used this as an example, society would collapse within a month if everybody suddenly had OCD. Because there'd be a whole group of people who would never leave their house because they were afraid of getting contaminated. And there'd be another group of people who wouldn't go to work because they'd be afraid either on the way to work, they would harm someone. So they'd just be driving around the block constantly every time they had a pothole thinking they ran somebody over. So they wouldn't even get to work on time. Power grids would go down. Gas would be shut off. There would be then no more gas going to gas stations. So no one could drive anymore. So then cars would just be stranded in the middle of the street because they ran out of gas while they were looking to see if they ran somebody over. And eventually we'd all be living in the dark, but nobody would want to set fires after a while because they would be afraid what if it spread and they couldn't put it out anymore. And there wouldn't be water flowing anymore because no one would run the pumping stations anymore to help get the water going. So then what about food? Well, all the refrigerators would go out because we wouldn't have ice or anything anymore because there would be no electricity. And so food storage would go. And after everybody used up all the canned goods, all you would have to eat was whatever you were growing in your garden. And once that went away and the winter came, we'd be screwed. But at least we did our rituals and we prevented the worst thing from happening that our OCD told us would happen, even though it brought about the destruction of the entire world and everything ended. But that's better than me potentially having run somebody over with my car. So at least when the world ended, I died knowing that I never ran anybody over. So that I got that going for me, which is nice. Or that sounds horrible. if that were to be the case. Right? So. Let's see. I know my obsessions are things not true about character, but can they also be things that physically are not real? I saw something in a horror movie that really disturbed me that I obsess about. It's clearly fantasy and not real. I intellectually know that what I'm afraid of is complete nonsense. Yep. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. It's interesting that people pay money to go and be afraid, right? And it's also interesting that means that somebody had to think up all of the things that are in that movie. So therefore, what does it say about the person who wrote the movie, who came up with all of that stuff? Are they just an awful, horrible, sick, and twisted human being who's making money off of being sick and twisted and thinking of all of these things? Maybe. So OCD punishes you for a thought or an image or an urge, but doesn't punish someone who has one of those very same things and then films it for a movie and then distributes it across the world for other people to watch. There's no punishment for those people whatsoever. But there is for you. I wonder why. Why aren't those people punished for creating that? Hmm? Carolyn says, I'm worried about my bodily fluids contaminating others. Mine is the dirtiest. Oh, Carolyn, I bet we'd have an argument here with everybody else who has contamination fears who would say to you, oh, no, mine's the dirtiest. No, mine's dirtier than all of you. I one time did a group when I was at Amida Health, which does a PHP and an IOP and a residential treatment center for OCD, by the way. So if anyone needs that, I'll put the name here in the comment section. The PHP and the IOP and the Foglia RTC. One time, and it was just a weird day at the partial hospital program, and 4 different patients had come up to me at some point during the day and said, I know that you probably won't be able to help me because my OCD is probably the worst you've ever seen. And I was just like, well, I tell you what, it's interesting. It is up there. Yeah. Wow. So for the last group of the day, I pulled the 4 of them into one room and I said, all right, we have a bit of an issue. And they were all looking at me like, oh no, what's wrong? And I said, the 4 of you today have tried to convince me that your OCD is the worst OCD in the world. And since there can be only one, I'm going to just sit back and watch all 4 of you argue about whose is actually worst. And let's see who wins. No one could agree. Can you imagine? Nobody could. Everyone said no, came out saying, well, but mine's worse than everybody else's. And everyone said, boy, I wish I had yours. That would be fine. I mean, I really wish I had your kind of OCD. But why do I have to have this kind of OCD? Why does it have to be this one? And of course, the answer to that's very simple. OCD only comes about things you care about and not about things you don't. So, all right. I'm afraid of the number 444. I'm seeing it everywhere and it's driving me crazy. All right. Well, put it in your wallet on a piece of paper and carry it around with you every day. Then you'll just get bored with it after a while. Adam says, there can be only one. Highlander. Yes. Thank you for getting the reference, Adam. I appreciate that. Sal says, I feel like religious OCD is the worst because there is an endless rabbit hole, but I know I'm something. Well, Sal, anyone with other types of OCD would disagree with you and say theirs is the worst kind of OCD. So, yeah. Again, we could all argue about this. Mm-hmm. Kelly says, I'll be starting with therapy with an OCD specialist soon. What can I expect and what should I tell her? Tell her everything that's going on, Sally. Don't hold back. Let her know, or Kelly, don't hold back and let her know everything. Because if you don't, then guess what happens? They're not going to be able to help you. So you got to be open. You got to be honest. No OCD therapist is going to hear what you say and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I mean, I've treated OCD, but oh my, this is, oh, the vapors. Oh. That's not going to happen. Okay. So. I really, really wish to get over my contamination OCD. It's just become extremely exhausting, debilitating, and tiring. I'm so tired of keeping up, yet I can't help it. I'm waiting for my insurance to approve a single case agreement to start therapy. What do you suggest I do in the time being? I'm just so tired. Well, you might start with cleaning one less thing a day than you have been. And go from there. Because that's what a therapist is going to have you do anyway. So pick one thing that would be the easiest thing not to clean today, and don't clean that thing. And learn how to handle that. And then tomorrow it can be 2 small things. And you can just slowly and gradually start adding things to that list. See how that goes. Any tips for, well, again, pure OCD? And right here is why you don't have pure OCD, because in your comments you say my compulsions involve going over conversations in my head. So that's why it can't be pure OCD. I would contend there is no such thing as pure OCD. It's just that you do mental rituals. So I have mental obsessions, of course. That's what obsessions are. They're thoughts, images, or urges. They're mental. That cause me to think disturbing thoughts. Okay. So I would say your obsessions are your disturbing thoughts. And your compulsions involve going over conversations in your head and saying certain things. Any tips on that? Yes. I would say, and again, do this with a therapist. Don't just take my advice on this, because I don't know you or everything about it. So this comes with the advice, first and foremost, to work with a therapist on this. But if you were my patient and that was what was going on, I'd have you make a loop tape of all of the disturbing thoughts that you have. And I just have you playing it over and over again until you were so stupidly bored with it that you just didn't care anymore. That's what we would work on. Because you're never going to go over enough conversations to satisfy your OCD. And you're never going to say enough things over and over again to make your OCD go away. What do you do instead? You just kind of overload yourself with all the OCD things and realize, oh gosh, this is just dumb. I'll give you an example outside of OCD. I treated somebody with social anxiety once who had this fear. He had been raised by in a family, and he had 5 older brothers, and they just teased him relentlessly as he was growing up, and he really internalized it. And he spent a lot of his adult life just running these things over and over again that his brothers had said to him. So I had him list all of the things that his brothers had told him while he was growing up and all the ways that they made fun of him. And then I got all my colleagues together and we gathered around a tape recorder because this was 20 years ago. So that's what we had. The technology we had back then was a loop cassette tape, actually. And we recorded it. If it was a 2-minute loop tape, and for 2 minutes we just said all of these things that he had written down, and we just teased him relentlessly on the recording. And then he put his Walkman on and pressed play, and for 5 hours he listened to that loop tape just go on and on while he read books or did all sorts of things throughout the day. And after about 5 hours, he came up to my office and he knocked on the door, and I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He said, "This is just stupid." I said, "Well, what's stupid?" He said, "All of these things that I'm hearing, they're just stupid." I said, "Okay, what does that mean?" He said, "Well, they just don't bother me anymore." I said, "Great. Can you live your life now, even if those thoughts pop in your head, not being bothered by them?" He said, "I think I can, because I realize they're just words, and that's all that they are. They don't have to mean anything." Well, there you go. And after that, he got amazingly better. Why? Because he faced his fear. What does OCD want you to do? Run away from your fear. It's constantly trying to get you to run away from your fear. I can't figure out how to help somebody who's run away from something. I can't help you with something if you've run away from it. I just don't know how to do that. It's impossible to do. So you got to face it. You got to be with it. You got to do it. And you got to learn that you can handle it. That's what has to happen. And I get it sucks. Nobody wants to do it, right? Nobody's really looking forward to that. But, you can't. Hold on a second. You could stand here, right? And just stand there the whole time. Or you could jump off of it and fly through the air and make your way from that up there all the way to down here, which I did in New Zealand, and it was awesome. And you come within about 50 feet of bashing your face into this little river here, which frankly is about, maybe a foot deep. So if that rubber band breaks, you're screwed. You're not surviving that fall. And that's 500 feet. So you go about 475 feet. You'll never make it down there if you don't jump from there. That's how it works. Most people who have OCD would like a way to not have OCD by not ever having to face their OCD. We haven't figured that out yet as a treatment science. Now, maybe one of you out there is a brilliant researcher and you're going to come up with the way to do that one day, where I have figured out a way to just take a pill or a shot or say a few magic words and OCD goes away. Please do. That'd be great. Go right ahead. That would help millions of people on the planet. But until you do that, the best thing we have available is exposure and response prevention, which is purposely putting you into situations that are uncomfortable and having you learn that you can handle those things. And that's what we have right now. That's the best thing that we have available. Okay. This has come up before. I'm just going to answer this question. No, I do not have OCD, actually. I do not. But though I don't have it, it's been an honor to me that people with OCD have said to me many times, "You seem to get this." And I take that as an amazingly true compliment. I really, that touches my soul, that somebody with OCD can look at me and go, how do you understand the way my brain works? And for me, that's really why I went into this field. I remember going to my postdoc at the St. Louis Behavioral Medicine Institute, and I was there about a week. And I just remember one point where I thought, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Because for the first time, I was working with a group of patients that I felt that I really connected with, I understood, and that I could actually explain things to them in a way that they got it and that they were able to see, might need to do something different. It's cool when you find the thing that maybe you were meant to do. I don't know. And I don't know what that means in a karmic sense or whatever, but thank you. It is always a compliment when someone with OCD says to me, you really get how my brain works. Yeah. Not only do we get it, we know how to help change it as well too. But you got to put the work in order for that to happen. And that work is tough. All right. So we're getting toward the end here, but that gives me 2 more minutes now to go and burn down my neighbor's home, be crushed by the burning upstairs of my house with a child on my lap that I haven't yet stolen from outside, but I have 3 more minutes to do so, all while a flock of birds crashes into the home after I've firebombed my neighbor's house. And boy, how did none of those things happen? Because I thought about all of them. So I'm perplexed now why none of those things actually occurred. And the answer could very well be that just because I think something doesn't actually mean I do something. But you know what the OCD reply to that is every single time? It is this. Yeah, but what if I do? And there is the unanswerable question. And there is where anyone with OCD is going to just have to sit with that and recognize that, you know what? It is okay to not have an answer to everything. It is impossible, actually, to have an answer to everything. And I want to leave all of you with that tonight, to work on becoming okay with not knowing. All right? That's what I want you to think about. It is okay not to know. Well, everyone, it was a quick hour as always. Always good to see all of you. I tried to get to as many questions as possible. Keep bringing them up if there's others. Reach out to NoCD at treatmyocd.com if you're looking for teletherapy. You don't have to suffer alone. OCD is treatable. And 8 o'clock. Well, it didn't come true. I didn't go do any of those horrible things. Maybe next time, though. Look for me in the news as the child stealing arsonist, bird killing, died in a horrible fire, crushed by a beam guy. Or maybe none of that will happen either. We'll just have to see. But if it does or doesn't, it's not because I said it. I don't have any powers. And that's just the way it goes. Good night, everyone.